first question is, what inspired you to become a filmmaker? Why you choose filmmaking?
Uh, Actually, there was nothing that really inspired me in that sense. There was no particular one person or one particular film. I uh, I always knew that I wanted to do something in the media, but I wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to do in the media. I At one point when I was growing up in my undergrads, I thought I could be a journalist, you know, but then over a period of time, I sort of didn't think I was cut out for journalism. I was also a little disillusioned with journalism, just looking at how things were around. Um, I also tried to work. My first job was actually in a PR company, right after my undergrad days. I worked in a PR company for a year, and then I realized the relationship that a PR company has with journalism. So I didn't think it was for me. So I was actually trying to find what I would like to do, in this very large world of media and communications. And then it was I gave an exam for Tata Institute of Social Sciences for masters, and they had a program called Media and Culture Studies. And honestly, I just saw the word media and I enrolled for it. I mean, I gave an interview and then I got shortlisted, etc. But again, I thought that maybe here I will see what are the different kinds of work one can do and what I would like. And I had not even seen a single documentary film till I came to this, you know and I learned how to make films here. I watched films. I saw that it was not like commercial filmmaking. It was not even journalism in that conventional way. It was somewhere in the middle. And as I did it, I just liked it. I just liked doing it. And then I just decided to continue doing it. And continue trying to understand this world of documentaries, because it was so no I mean there were no clear cut answers of how do you become a documentary filmmaker. What do like, I didn't know anything, honestly. I just knew what I knew and I did it. It was like that.
Okay. Ma'am, how long was the course in this?
It was a 2 year course. It's called Media and Culture Studies, Masters in Media and Culture Studies. It's a 2 year course. And actually, that's where I teach now. So I'm a professor at the same department I joined about 3.5 years back. Almost 15 years after I had graduated from this program, I'm teaching here. So it's a course where you are doing, both theory and practice. So you're doing different kinds of media practice. You're learning how to make films. You're learning how to do web development. You're learning the web design. Then you're learning how to do podcast. So you do a little bit of like different kind of media practices, and at the same time, you're also learning how to research, learning how to write, learning how to do social sciences research, how to be a little critical about society and how you look at it. So it was a very nice balance of actually learning how to do theory and research and writing, and also making something in the world of media.
Okay.
Like that.
Ma'am, there you found interest in documentary and you thought you want to
Yes,
become a documentary filmmaker.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. So, ma'am, yeah, can you then you went to JNU to do your PhD? Can you tell you a little bit about that?
Actually, after I did my masters from TIS, I was practicing as a filmmaker, and I was making films, looking for grants, and doing different kinds of things. That's when I did my first film on the actually the second film on the Parsi community. But what was happening was that I had some questions about the world of documentary filmmaking. This idea, very simplistic idea, that it was for documentaries about representing reality, it is unbiased, or it is supposed to be for social upliftment and social good, and also that the filmmaker is giving some kind of unfiltered objective version of reality. Those kind of questions were obviously, I had been trained in asking these kind of questions at this. But when I was out, I of course had those kind of questions which became more nuanced. But I also had questions, which were about, honestly, about the material reality of being a filmmaker. By that I mean, how do you make money? How do films get funded? How, and this was a time when the OTT platform had not really come out. So I'm talking about 2000. Like, it was not big in the way that now we see documentaries on Netflix and things like that. We have more access to documentaries now, but about 10, 12 years back, it was still a world I didn't understand. So I had some questions basically about documentary filmmaking, and not about how to make films or what do films say, but also about just this ecosystem of production and exhibition. What is it about your films making it to certain festivals? Why do they make it to certain festivals? How do festivals sustain themselves? That I had a conversation about my experience as a filmmaker. That those are the questions I had. So that's what I explore in my PhD. So my PhD is called The Public Life of Documentary in India. And I look at the experience of the documentary film and the filmmaker as they navigate through different spaces of funding, of facing censorship by the government. Then what do they do? What are the strategies they employ? About film festival programming. How do film festivals select films? What do they do to how we understand of documentary? What do they do to the audiences? What is the role of the programmer? And then finally the audience. Like, what is this relationship with the audience? Why do we do post screening discussions after documentary film screenings? What does it do to how the audience understands the documentary? Is it really about social change, or is it something else that's happening? So those kind of questions I sort of tried to address in my PhD.
Ma'am, so before making a film, like, did you assisted somewhere as an AD?
No, no, no. I was just working on my own, and I was also collaborating with other people. So for Qissa-e-Parsi, my film on the Parsi community, and also another film called Dere to Delhi, which was a film on the community I come from, which is the Derawal community from across the border. For these two films, I collaborated with my co-director Divya Kawasji. So we both looked at our respective communities and collaborated on films together. Then I made another film, which was a commissioned film in Punjab. That was a direction I did on my own. Then there was another film in Bihar called Naach Bhikhari Naach. For that film, I collaborated with Janendra Dost. He was also doing his PhD at JNU around the same time on the same topic. So I have collaborated with a lot of people, editors, sound people, sound designers, sound recordists, musicians, cinematographers, but I have not assisted anyone actually. I've just learned on the job.
That's great. Ma'am, if somebody wants to make a documentary, so how they can get money or funds for making a documentary?
See, there are one thing to understand is that documentary is not so mainstream, and the industry is not really an industry as such. It's only beginning to open now in the last few years. So if somebody wants to make a documentary, my answer would be just make the documentary. Because unlike earlier, we have access to technology. Films are made on cell phones. In fact, next week at TIS here, we are doing a film festival, which is called Digital Disruptions. And it's a film festival where we got 170 entries made on just digital media devices, on just smartphones. And it has been made by all kinds of people, students and people from the community, and individuals who are not trained, or and proper people who are like professional filmmakers. So one is that I feel like, unlike earlier, now we have access to technology, and it's making a film and having access to equipment is very, very easy now. It's as easy as how you are doing this podcast. It is that possible. So one is that one should just make. You don't really have to wait for money. Second is that if you are somebody who's aspiring to make money or get some money to make the film, then one way to do is to apply for grants. So if you're an early career filmmaker in India, there is Public Service Broadcasting Trust, that has funds for they have a program called Doc Commune, where they're funding training and funding young filmmakers. There is another organization called India Foundation for the Arts. That is, an organization that generally funds many artistic projects. So it can be a theater project, it can be a film project, it can be a dance project. and it funds independent artists to pursue, sometimes just experiment with work. So there are some kind of these kind of small organizations that will give you a little bit of seed money to be able to, I mean, depending on the scale of your project, they can give you some seed money, or they can give you all the money you need for a project which is not very big scale. And another way to sort of raise bigger money for documentary filmmaking, apart from commission projects that you might find from government or non-government organizations, is in the international market. So those are like grants that are associated with big giving bodies or with big film festivals. So there will be, for example, a grant with at the Busan International Film Festival. So and then there'll be a grant with maybe at IDFA or at Sundance, and then smaller grants also. So then there are different tiers and different layers at which one can apply for grants. Another way in which one can also do make films is collaborating with actually NGOs, which is something I also do. They are looking for work to be made for them, with them, in collaboration with them. So it will become a commission project, but you also then have the scope for sort of making the film you want to make in collaboration with an organization. And then, of course, uh, the big markets and the OTTs and all is a completely different ballgame altogether. But that's also where now there's, so depending on where you are, in your career, and where you are in your experience of making films, you can apply accordingly. But it starts with, you can make a film without any money, and it can go to wherever you want to take it.
And ma'am, what are the best film festivals for documentaries?
Where, in India or abroad?
Eh, in India and abroad both.
Okay, I'll tell you. I mean, in India, I'll tell you the ones that I have found to be really exciting and you see really good work. Um, IDSFFK in Kerala, International Documentary and Short Film Festival of Kerala. That is one of the nicest festivals for documentary and short fiction films that I have gone to. They program very good films. There is a very good prize money to be won, if you are entering the competition section of that. And generally, the atmosphere with which films are watched and the enthusiasm of the audience and the quality of the films that go there is fantastic. Another festival that I really personally like is DIF, Dharamshala International Film Festival. It's a film festival in the mountains. They have all kinds of programming, experimental. I think they have experimental also, maybe, but fiction, non-fiction, both. Indian works and international works that come here. That programming is also actually quite exceptional, and it's such a celebration of cinema in that way. I really like that festival. Then I recently attended the IWAT festival in Delhi, which is International Association of Women in Radio and Television. And on 8th March, they do a around 8th March, Women's Day, they do a festival in Delhi at the India International Center. And that festival, apart from, screening films which are either made by women directors or in solidarity with issues of gender or exploring ideas of gender. That film festival is very eclectic because there is like conversations and conferences that are happening on the documentary. There are people who are learning how to, so there are workshops going on. Then there's, it's like a full festival. It's beyond just films. There's so much more happening, and these are spaces which also bring together filmmakers. Otherwise, we're all scattered, no, everywhere. So then these kind of film festivals, some very good and very like indie commercial kind of films are at Mami, Mumbai International, not Mumbai International, Mami. I'm forgetting the full name of it, but that happens in Bombay here. You know, yeah. So those are like some of the good festivals, and then there's smaller festivals also which I really like, but these are some of the big ones in India.
And ma'am, international.
Internationally, there's a very big list, Akash. Like, it's a very, very big list. I haven't been to many international film festivals, but there's this whole top tier of film festivals. What we call the A-list film festivals. That would be IDFA, that's in Amsterdam, Sundance, Vision Do Reels, it's in Switzerland, CPH Docs, that's in Copenhagen. Then this Busan Film Festival. I mean, these are like the big ones. But Apart from there, there are like hundreds and hundreds of festivals at different level and scale. Yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix. There's Sheffield. I mean, there's so many, so many.
Ma'am, in India, like if somebody makes a documentary film, let's just say,
Mm,
and they do a really good film festival in India only,
mm,
do
mm,
they create a buzz? Like, will audience will see? I'm not saying about my audience like myself, the general audience, have interest in
mm.
documentaries. Do you think?
I mean, honestly, when I talk about these film festivals, when we see film screenings, actually, these are good film festivals when active cinephilic audiences come and watch and seek out films. So, the ones that I named in India have actually a really good response. There's another really good festival called Cinema of Resistance Film Festival. That is across, 22 cities in North India. They might even have a Jalandhar chapter. Just find out. So it's the main ones in Udaipur and in Udaipur and in Gorakhpur are the big ones. But they also have Patna. They also have Bareilly. So that's like looking at tier two, tier three cities of North India. And I have attended two of the Cinema of Resistance film festivals, and it's been packed. These audiences are packed. There's another one which is Kolkata People's Film Collective. They are in Calcutta and they do an annual festival and they do a lot of rounds of screenings on ground. So, I mean, the ones who are doing good work and have established a very good like, experience for the audience over the years, they have a very good response from the audience. And apart from that, now when just generally when you hear about my everyday and people who I know, there are people who now do watch documentary films, whether it is on Netflix or whether it'll be on Apple TV or whether it'll be at their local festival. Many more people watch documentary films today than I had heard ever before, in my early years of my practice.
I wanted to ask, like, what was your parents' reaction when you said you want to go into filmmaking?
It was I mean it was not like any day where I declared that I'm going to be a filmmaker. It was not like that. But what I was doing was that I would make a film, and like in the beginning it would be so small scale, right? So I would make a film and I would take it to my family and show it to them on the TV. So then for them they used to be like, okay, but is it going to come in the theater? And I would say no, it won't get a release like in the theater. Then they'll be like, will it come on TV? you know so I used to say, "Ki, yeah, it can come on TV." One of my early films came on Doordarshan. So I was like, yeah. So they were like, acha, but how do you make money? Same questions, right? Like, acha, okay, so okay. It was difficult for them to understand in the beginning, you know till then I realized I was making a mistake. So what happened after that was, with my film, this Qissa-e-Parsi, there was a screening of that at a very big auditorium in Delhi. And I called my parents that day and they watched the film on the big screen. And then they heard me do a Q&A with the audience, you know. And here are like 200, 300 people sitting in front, with them, and they are asking questions to their daughter, and the daughter's answering. And that was, I think, the first time it hit home for my family what I do, and also having the experience of my film on the big screen. And the second time it happened was for this film only, I got the national award. And with that, what happens is that my parents, before they know it, were sitting in an audience where their daughter was receiving the award from the president, right? So for them it was, and that's when I realized my parents got a sense of this world, which was a very new world for them, as new as it was for me also. So it was, I think that's when they sort of began to understand what I do. And then there on, after that, have shared rough cuts with them. They have come for many screenings of my films. They're very much, they will share links of my films or online with all their friends, and stuff like that. So I think it took time for them also to understand what this world is, while I was understanding what this world is, with funding and shoot schedules and things like that. So it was a slow process of learning for all of us.
Okay. Ma'am, currently GNU elections are happening. Like, you must be
Yeah.
aware. Are you like,
Yes, yes.
you follow?
I,
You follow?
Actually, not as much anymore because I don't live in Delhi and I'm not on campus, you know. So I know that they're happening, and I know that there are some kind of, because it has not happened in a while. But I'm not like, I'm not up to date with what's happening actually.
You used to live in hostel, in JNU hostel?
No, no, I was a day scholar. So that's also one more reason why, I was not. Um, and also, I mean, the about 3 years of my PhD also went during COVID time. So it was also sad. Like, I made the submission of my film online, of my PhD online, and didn't have that kind of closure with the university like one would do. It was only recently with the convocation that I had that I felt like, okay, I'm finally closing this chapter of my life. But uh, COVID and all really has like, it was difficult for the education system, both for teachers and for students. So my PhD also happened around that time, most part of the last part of my PhD.
Ma'am, let's talk about your short film Qissa-e-Parsi. So how the idea came, ma'am, and what was your experience while making it?
Like I said earlier, this was in 2014 that we completed the film. Um, the idea behind making Qissa-e-Parsi and another film at that time called Dere to Delhi, which was about, like I said, so Dere to Delhi was about my community, my grandparents who had migrated from Pakistan to India during India's partition in 1947. We made a film on that. And Divya's family, which is, Divya's community, which is the Parsi community, which also has a history of migration from Iran to India, but that's back in the 8th or the 9th century. So both of us were basically looking at our respective communities and working together. So Qissa-e-Parsi, and both of us had actually in TIS done our master's research. So there's a component of master's research, where both of us had looked at our respective communities. We had gone and spoken to people. We had done a lot of in-depth research in these areas. And then when we graduated, we said, okay, we've done so much research. We want to make films. So let's start working with our respective communities and work. So Qissa-e-Parsi came out of that. It had got a grant from the Ministry of External Affairs through PSBT, that organization that I was mentioning. And we set out to make it, and it was fun. It was really a lot of fun because we were meeting new people. We were also working outside the university as filmmakers. It was the early years of our work as professionals. Parsi community is a very loved and a very funny community, so we used to have a great time actually. Shooting, and on the edit, I mean, also early years of our career, right? We don't even know what we don't know, so whatever you just make it. It was like that. So from that perspective, we had a great time, making the film. And I think that's how films should be made also. You should, otherwise you get too burdened by how it will be seen, whether it will be successful, and all of those questions. So I really liked those early days. You were a little more carefree.
Okay. And ma'am, how much time it took to complete the film, like everything, research,
Uh,
editing, shooting?
it was, I don't remember exactly now, but we, the research part of it, because we had already done, Divya had done that research for her master's thesis. So a large part of the research had already started much before we even started the film, right? And concretely going and doing recce and finding out who's going to be in our film, etc., and planning that. I think this film may have been made in about 8 to 10 months. You know, where I think we may have spent about 3 to 4 months in editing, and shooting was not throughout for 2 months, but we would have 2 or 3 different shooting schedules that would be probably for a week each, week or 10 days each, like that. So I think overall, I don't remember the exact time, but I think it was less than a year. It was less than 1 year, and that was also the duration of the grant we had got from PSBT. So we had a timeline that we adhered to.
And ma'am, how big was the crew?
Oh, it was just me and Divya. So it was me and Divya, and Divya's brother Jal Kawasji. He's a cinematographer now. His work is now on the OTT and all, very big. But basically, we decided to keep a small crew. Also because our budget was not very high, and there were places in where, like places like the Parsi temples and things like that, where I would not be allowed to enter. So we knew that we needed two people. So it was Divya and Divya's brother Jal, who was studying actually at yeah, he was studying, I think, filmmaking around that time. So the three of us. So I managed the edit, and Divya and Jal managed the camera work and direction, and production management and all of that. Divya and I did among ourselves. So it was basically, yeah, it was actually just us. And then for other small works, we would bring people on board to sort of help us out with other things. Like we collaborated with a musician, a very good musician and sound worker, Onindo Bose in Delhi. So he did the music for our film, like that. So we, at different stages, we sort of invited people to collaborate with us. Um, but the main crew was three of us actually, Divya, Jal, and me. Yeah.
And ma'am, then you made another film, which is is it a feature or a feature? Tale de Kunje, Tale de Kunje.
Tala Te Kunji is a feature-length documentary.
I'm
It's
really
in Amritsar.
like, what's the difference between a feature and non-feature? If you could.
Just the duration of length. It's the matter of length. So normally you say a feature length film would be 60 minutes and above, and a short film, so would be, I think, under 40, and then these mid-length films, these are like broad standards, right? Mostly international standards. And a mid-length film is anything between 40 to 60, 40 minutes to 60 minutes. So Talate Kunji is actually 90 minutes, almost 82 minutes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
how the idea came and what was the experience when you did?
Honestly, I was not planning to make a film in Punjab. I was Somebody had seen my work and contacted me and invited me to come and visit a rehab center in Amritsar. So it was the first time that I had ever been to a rehab center. Probably the first time or the second time I'd been to Amritsar. I didn't really know anything about the world of recovery and what happens there. So the first time when I went there, I was really shocked and really disturbed and very affected by what I saw and and then also very inspired by just the kind of work that was happening. Where in that rehab, where a lot of people who were in recovery had actually been working as counselors in that rehab. So I was actually commissioned by the rehab to make that film. They invited me and said, "Would you like to make a film on this?" And this was also the time when Urta Punjab had come. So we were very clear that we didn't want to make a film about the problem of drug abuse in Punjab, because that journalists and this film like Urta Punjab had already done. So we want to focus on recovery. It was also easier to take out a camera and speak to somebody who is going through a process of recovery as opposed to somebody who is in addiction when we are shooting with them. There would be a lot of problems with regard to ethics and just how do you shoot with somebody who's not doing well, like that. So that film took about 2 years. It was for me. It took me almost 6 to 8 months to just keep going back to Amritsar and getting to know people, getting to know their stories, understanding this world of recovery, understanding Punjab in a different way, and then we shot for almost a year, and that crew was again just three people or four people max. So one on sound, one on camera. Sometimes we would have a production assistant and me. And so we kept going back after every few months, to the rehab and shooting. And then we took a long time, almost 6 to 8 months, to edit that film. So that film and that experience, it changed me as a person. I can say that for everybody in my crew. um, it changed us as people. It felt like we had gone through therapy because we sat through so many therapy sessions, of other people and other counselors, dealt with a lot of issues we were dealing with as individuals, as people, and just the all the protagonists in the film, just the people we met, how they have chosen their lives, how brave they are, how uh, despite so many problems and so many hardships, so many of them sort of respond to life in such miraculous ways that they have now become, icons in themselves, who are, so it was a beautiful experience. Like, I'm so happy that at that stage in my life I had the experience of engaging with the issue of addiction and recovery and understanding it at a deeper level, and meeting the kind of people I met. They were like absolutely fantastic people, who have gone through a lot in life and have learned to live life in different ways. Very nice.
Ma'am, what was the like most difficult challenge while making the film?
um I mean, I don't think that was the most difficult, and like there's nothing that was really, but there were a lot of challenges. Like, in the sense, uh, um, one of the things would be like this. Okay, like, all the people in our film, who are the protagonists, have very like miraculous stories about addiction and how they've come out of addiction, and they continue to struggle, as they're in recovery. But these were also people who were celebrities in their own way, right? Like, they were people who were speaking to other people in Punjab. Somebody had received a bravery award. Somebody was on TV for the story that they had gone through, for the experience they had gone through. People were like public speakers, so they were on stage addressing an audience at all times. So what was happening was that they were used to telling their story very regularly and almost every day, so what was happening was that when we had put the camera in front of them, we would ask the same questions and they would give us these almost rehearsed answers, right? Because they've been telling the story of their addiction and recovery for a long, long time to people. So it was almost like a scripted kind of a performance that would come out in front of the camera, and what we were trying to do was break that, so that when they speak to us, it feels as if they're sharing this for the first time, with the same kind of emotion. Because otherwise, when you keep repeating the story, there's also a certain kind of detachment that comes to the story, right? So that was one thing, to just get them to speak about their experience once again, but differently, so that it doesn't feel like it has been said enough number of times. That was one. Then the other was, I mean, we saw a lot of people struggling. This was a rehab center where there would be counseling sessions where you would see just young women who have not even been married for 6 months with still wearing that chuda in their hand, sitting. You would see a lot of parents, you would see a lot of people crying because they're so hurt, or they are losing who they love so much and struggling so much in life. Um, so it used to be very intense, actually, emotionally. We were taking in a lot, as people who had never gone through this kind of an experience before. So it was for all of us, I mean, a big learning experience, but it was also hard emotionally on us, I think, and to a certain extent. And yeah, like, nothing, like, it was nothing very challenging. It just changed us as people. you know
But ma'am, the film is really hopeful. It doesn't show like the struggles and such.
Yes, 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 yes. Because I think that the women in that film are just absolutely fantastic. This was a big learning. There's this one scene in the film where this lady, she's showing us her wedding album, and she's turning the pages and saying and pointing out to a younger version of herself on the day of her wedding, and then just recounting how life has just passed, right? And then, so up till that moment in the shoot, we were actually making a film on the men who were in recovery, right? So it was all the men who have really amazing stories to tell. So we were making a film, about them. And when that moment happened with this lady, Satpal Kaur, We call her Dolly Auntie. And she, when she's showing that album to me, and then at some point she says, "I've gone through so much. I've सब कुछ मतलब कितना किया मैंने, and today he's the hero." And that moment happened, and I went back home that day. I mean, went back to our rooms. Then I asked the person on, and she had said it very very softly. So I asked Varun, who was doing sound for us, Varun, like, did you catch that? Did you hear what she said? And we heard that day's interview again. you know and that was the day I thought that it seemed like she was saying something to us. Like we have gone through so much, and today he's the hero, and he is a hero. Like, he's fantastic. Her husband he's really one a very, very big figure in that rehab, and generally in Amritsar. But that was the day, I went back realizing that I was making a mistake by not looking at women and lives of women who are helping these men out of recovery, the labor of love that women do, the kind of strength they have. Because until then, if somebody had come to me and said, Shilpi, my husband is an alcoholic, he's violent, we've lost everything in life, he's not understanding, I would tell her to leave. I would say, please leave the marriage, right? Because my idea of feminism until then um, was about women fighting for themselves and walking out of relationships which are not good for them, right? And here were these women that I was seeing who, for whatever reason, could not walk out of their marriage, didn't want to walk out of their marriage, and stayed within the marriage. But I had no way of understanding or looking at them through a feminist lens. So after that day, like, so that moment is very important, and that's why it's just at the center of the film. In that sense, it changed. So then after that, I went back and I opened up the footage and looked at what all the women were saying to me, what all the wives were saying to me, and then they found their way into the film. And the film is hopeful because of them. I think the film, and I think that's why the name sort of worked for us, Taala te Kunjee. What is the lock and what is the key? Or what is this relationship of the lock and key, and sort of, you can read it symbolically. So yeah, so we didn't want to make a depressive film. We wanted to make a film that would give people ideas about how there are ways in which you can think through your life and work through your life differently, and still, मतलब आप फिर भी जूझ सकते हो अपनी addiction से. It's possible. So yeah, that's what it was.
Well, that's like the film doesn't work, man, if the wives wouldn't have a beer, man. I have seen it. And ma'am, then let's talk about Naach Bhikhari Naach. First of all, about the title. I know that there's a lot of politics. The title was something else. If you could please then.
So this film, I mean, you've seen it. This film is on Bhikhai Thakur. He was a legend. He is a legend. He's known as the Shakespeare of Bhojpuri. And the dance form that we were exploring, or folk theatre form that we're exploring in the film, is Londa Naach. This I was introduced to it by Janendra Dost, my co-director for the film. We also studied together at JNU, where Bhikhai Thakur and Londa Naach was the area of research that he was doing, both for his MPhil and for his PhD. So this film was made around the time that we were doing the MPhil, uh, and um, and I also do theater in Delhi, right? So this was like a new experience of theater, actually, that I was going through with Janendra, a new world that we were seeing. And one also began to realize quite early on, actually, that there's a lot of stigma attached to the dance form because men impersonate as women. There are sexual innuendos in the performances. There are double meaning dialogues, right? And so the stigma and also the caste realities, which are intertwined with this performance tradition and the realities of Bihar. So we realized that, the idea of vulgarity, the idea of what is a londa, why is it considered cheap, and not in good taste, right? It's not considered good taste like that. And why is there so much stigma where a very big artist like Ramchandra Majhi is known, in his own village, and has been awarded later. He was awarded by the by the president of the country, but his whole family had not seen him perform, you know. So we were trying to sort of explore that in the film actually, and also document Bhikhari Thakur, and also just capture this performance tradition that happens. And the film's name was called Naach Londa Naach, you know, in the beginning. And this film was also funded by PSBT, but the funding was coming in from Doordarshan. So PSBT had a tie up with Doordarshan, and you know they would commission certain films. So this film was commissioned under that, and at some point we were told by our producers that we have to change the name of the film because some bureaucrat in Doordarshan, I think, thought that the word Londa is very doesn't sound good to the ears, you know. And then there was a lot of tussle. There was a lot of tussle, a lot of going back and forth, etc., etc. We tried really hard, and by the end of it, we were actually constrained by the contracts we had signed with PSBT. So we realized that let's be more strategic about it. It's okay if we have Bhikhari Thakur's name in the title. The film still is about Londa Naach, and you have to negotiate basically, um, so that your film sees the light of day. Otherwise, so that was the experience of that film.
Ma'am, how long it took to complete the film?
This film took a little over a year, um, um, primarily because there were only certain times of the year that we could shoot, right? Because performance of London Arch happens at a certain time. Sometimes it was just too hot to shoot, so we would only shoot, you know, after July or August in the year. So that this film must have had around. Yeah, it must have had about 6 to 8 months of research and doing recce and going to Bihar and seeing what we will shoot and planning and things like that and coming back. And then I think it was about within 6 months, we did again 2 or 3, maybe 3 rounds of going to Bihar and shooting. But whenever because we were following this Mandali, whenever the Mandali would travel, let's say, to Allahabad or come to Delhi, then we would just go with them and shoot. So sometimes those would be just 1 or 2 days of shoot like that. And then, so yeah, this film took about a year and a half to complete completely. And it was also stuck with the censor board for some time. For 3 4 months, it was stuck with the censor board. That's another story. But yeah. That was the duration of the film.
Do tell the story about the censor.
The censor board, the censor board experience was almost comical. Actually, I feel like I should write about it someday. So we sent the film. So this film had finally gotten approval from PSBT and from Doordarshan, and the requirement as a part of that contract was that we will get the film approved by the CBFC, which is the Central Board of Film Certification. We sent our film for CBFC, and then we got a call. I don't remember the exact details, but it was something to the effect that we got a call and they said that you can come back. Please come back. The committee would like to talk to you and we would like to make certain suggestions for edits. So then when we went back, we realized that they had very minor this thing, can you please cut this word, or can you remove something? So one of the things, I think by Doordarshan we were asked to remove was all references to Lalu Prasad Yadav, which we sort of removed, but we kept one or two we kept because we thought it was important, for that. But the censor board basically had problems with certain words being used because they might have sexual innuendos or double meaning dialogues and all. And we were like, okay, because again, you have to be strategic. You can't say I won't cut and then you will have your film stuck at the censor board for another 6 months. So then what we said was, okay, fine, if it's not interfering with what we're trying to say in the film, we are happy to mute certain words, insert that cigarette smoking is injurious to health kind of watermark at the bottom of our film, I mean, of the screen. But basically, what happened, the funny thing that had happened was that there was this one particular word which was called, I think it meant dad. Okay. Which there's a dialogue that Ramchandra Maji says, which he says, to move your lips, to move your hip is not dance, that exercise. Okay. तो अगर दांत चमकाना he says this. I can't remember the exact thing he used in Bhojpuri, but essentially there was a word called dad that they had said you must mute. We said dad means hip. It doesn't have to be move. It means kamar. It doesn't have to. It's not wrong. And they said no, no, no. You must mute it. So I said okay. So then I was the editor. I went back. I muted that word that I thought they had a problem with, and then it went back. And they said, then 2 months later, they called me and said, ma'am, that word has not been muted. I said, but it has been muted. So they were like, but our committee here can hear it. So I said, how can your committee hear it? And then I was invited back to the censor board office. And then we would play that scene again. And they would be like, वो देखो वो word है. And I would say, नहीं है वो word नहीं है. And then it was like I can't hear it but they can hear it. And then at some point I said, आप बताइए तो सही क्या word है और आपको क्या problem है. And he said, मैम मैं वो it's a dirty word, आपको मैं कैसे बोल सकता हूँ वो word. So he wouldn't say the word. They would hear the word. I had muted the word. It was such a comic, comedy thing. And finally, we just couldn't agree with it because I thought that word was not dirty and they thought that word was dirty. So we waited for another 2 months till they got a language expert. So one more language expert was brought, and then that language expert said, "Yes, this madam is right." And then we said, "Okay, okay, okay." And then they sort of we were signing, their approval form. And in that moment, one of their or those committee members, who was late for this meeting, she entered in the last 5 minutes. And she said, "वो word हट गया." And we said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, sir has approved, etc., etc." She was like, "Let's play it." And then she's saying, "I can hear it." And we are saying, but it is. It was like anyway, we resolved it, but it was stuck for dad, the word dad, and some other words. This thing was stuck at the censor board for 6 months. It was hilarious.
Crazy, crazy. Ma'am, right now you are doing any projects like shooting something or searching?
Um, I'm actually working on two projects. One is that I'm working on a personal project, which is on my grandparents, my nana and my nani. They were both refugees from Pakistan to India around partition time, like I had mentioned. So now I am trying to work with, their personal archives that I have sort of inherited after their death. So my grandmother was an astrologer, so I found a lot of books of her writing, and my grandmother was also, I don't know if, I mean, you must know Amrita Pritam. She's a very big Punjabi and Urdu writer. Please find out. I mean, Amrita Pritam is a very big name in Punjab and actually all over the world. Extensively translated. She's a very prolific writer. So one project is about my grandmother was Amrita Pritam's astrologer. So one project is about my grandmother and her friendship with Amrita Pritam. That's one, and the other project that I'm doing is on my grandfather, who was a Sanskrit school teacher. In Delhi, had gotten rehabilitation after partition and gotten refugee accommodation in Delhi, and I discovered over the years that he was also a pulp fiction writer. So he used to write these, novels about love and relationships and society in the 60s and 70s and 80s, until he died in the 1990s. So I found these pocket books, they would be sold at railway stations for 1 rupee. And they would be about, all of these subjects. So I'm working on these two projects about my nana and my nani. Maybe one is going to be a fiction project and the other might be a hybrid kind of a documentary project. So I'm not sure where it is right now, but that's what I'm working on.
Okay. Ma'am, if somebody like wants to like assist you, how they can approach you?
They can just write an email to me. Just write an email to me, and if I'm working on something at that time and I need assistance or help and all that, I'll be very happy to work with people.
Do they need to be like film school, or it's okay if they haven't been to like film school?
No, no, no. It's perfectly fine. See, the thing with assisting filmmakers, especially filmmakers who work on projects for a long period of time, it's really about where we are at the which stage of production we are at. You know, So you can be in research stage, you can be in the shooting stage, you can be in post production stage, so if depending on where I am with my project and what kind of help I need, one, I can work with anyone. It doesn't have to really be a film school student. It just has to be somebody who's anybody actually, who's interested in working.
Okay. Ma'am, what are your favorite films and filmmakers, ma'am?
I don't have like a favorite film in that way, but there are lots of films I like. I like from the more like documentary history kind of perspective. I like this film called iconic film Man with the Movie Camera. It's by Ziga Vertov. That's like an iconic work I show in my class also, and I it's really nice film. I really like it. A documentary film which changed the way I thought about documentaries was a film called Nostalgia for the Light. It's by this filmmaker from Chile called Patricio Guzman. It's based in the Atacama Desert. It's a really wonderful film. I really like Close Up by Abbas Kiarostami because just what it does with fiction, non-fiction, So I like films that have moved me, but have also changed the way I think about documentaries. My One of my most amazing favorite films is a experimental film called Abid, Abid. Abid by an experimental filmmaker called Pramod Pati. This it's a 5-minute film. It was made by the government actually, by the films division here in Bombay in the 1960s, and it's an experimental film, and it's on YouTube actually. You can find it on the films division YouTube page. And that film also, it was so exciting to see there was experimentation happening. It's animation, it's so much together, so those are like some of the iconic films I like. And otherwise, there's this film called Nirnay by a filmmaker called Pushpa Rawat. It was, I think, her first film, and it is just so beautiful. Every time I screen it, I feel like it has just this. It's an evergreen kind of a film. Then there is a very nice film, beautiful and very poetic. It's called Up, Down, and Sideways. Up, Down, and Sideways. It's by Ishwar and Anushka. I think Anushka Minakshi and Ishwar Sri Kumar. This also came a few. So these are like the Indian films I like, which came in recent years, like 2016, 17 onwards. I recently saw the last one. I recently saw this film called Suddenly TV. It is a film from South Sudan, which I saw for a jury work at a festival, and that film is looking at a culture of protest in South Sudan, documented by these young boys who have just, made a camera out of a cardboard and called it Suddenly TV. And then they are going on a protest site, just shooting with this cardboard camera, and the filmmaker shooting. So it's a really nice film. It's so simply made, but so powerful, Suddenly TV. So yeah, like I have a long list of films I really like. These are some of them.
Okay. Just one film I wanted to ask. Like, have you seen Walls with Bashir?
The animation film.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Animation.
long back I saw. Long back I saw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you like
Have you
it?
seen it?
Yeah, yeah.
You like it? Yeah. Actually, I should watch it again. I should watch it again. I think I saw it like a long time back. I don't remember much of it, but I remember liking it, I think, at that time. Um, there was also a graphic novel, actually, which is on the same.
Persepolis.
Persepolis, yes, around. So it's been a while. I feel like maybe I was much younger when I watched this stuff. I'd like to watch it again and then decide again what I think of them. Yeah.
Okay. So, last question is, if somebody wants to become a filmmaker, so what advice would you give to them, ma'am?
I mean, I feel like the craft of the film. How do you tell the story? How do you shoot the technical aspects of the film? I feel like all of that. only improves as you practice more or make more films, right? So that is something that will develop anyway. That skill set will develop if you make enough films, if you work with good people and collaborate with good people, if you keep going, basically be a student of that all your life, so I feel like what I made 10, 12 years back and what I made today, I know I've learned by just doing and being a filmmaker. But what I'm trying to say is that that is something that will happen anyway. You will become a better skilled filmmaker over the years anyway. What is important, actually more important than the technicality of filmmaking, is arriving at what you want to say, you know um, um, that films, and all films and especially documentary films, are not objective, they're subjective. They're about you, they're about what you think about the world, so you and your position, what you have to say about the world is all there in your film, so that is what I feel like people need to strengthen. What do you want to say? And that is the hardest thing to get at. Sometimes, even after so many years, when I start my new film, I still don't know what I want to say in the film, so that is a process of arriving, and I think that's a process of also arriving at yourself, of getting to know yourself and then finding a way to articulate that, so I think that is what people should work towards developing. What is your point of view? Have a point of view, have something to say about the world, and say it through your films, rather than hiding behind your films or taking a very safe position, because you will be revealed in your film anyway. Like this Punjab film we were talking about, what I was going through with regard to what I felt about the women, by the end of it came in my film, right? I took a position with regard to the women and how I wanted to show them and why I wanted to show them. This clarity I didn't have at the beginning of the film. It's the process of constantly engaging with it that you will arrive at something, so I hope that my advice to all filmmakers, young and old, and people like me, it's almost like I'm saying this to myself. um, you know um, Working towards that is as important, probably more important than working on the production quality of the film, because production quality of the film, you can master it, having the right collaborators, working on your skill set, that you will do. But it's the mind, it's the politics that you have to develop. And by politics, I mean your point of view. I don't mean like national politics. So that's what I would like to say to everybody, for myself also.
Okay, okay. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining. Such a
You're
pleasure.
welcome, and thank you so much for doing this. Like, you're doing such prolific work, and you make it
Oh,
sound so easy, and you've done 63, 64. That, congratulations for that. It's fantastic.
thank you so much. Thank you so much.